do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch.
Hello, my name is Harriton Botco and welcome to our program. Tonight's topic you will find interesting. It's, I titled it, What to Believe. Ika nga, no? Ano ibig sabihin ng what to believe? Alam nyo, when I start the show, if you notice, I always say, you are what you watch, you are what you hear, or what you listen to, and basically that's it. Because kung ano sinabi sa atin ng media, nakikinig po tayo, parang they become truths. Perceptions are driven by media to become truth. If they are false, how would you know? Alam mo, if you take a experiment, no, kanyari nighttime news, no, umikot ka sa mga malalaking broadcast stations, news ng Channel 2, Channel 7, Channel 5, yung mga malalaking broadcast. Pakinggan nyo po yung news, pakinggan mo nyo yung mga statistics. Alam mo, iba-iba, hindi mo alam kung sinong tama, sinong hindi. But you see, truths are peddled and they become truths based on perceptions. Or perceptions are peddled and they become truths. Ganito po nangyayari. Now, I'll go straight to the show. We have two programs tonight. The second part being totally different from this first portion. On this first part, we have a journalist, a student, well, he just finished from school from the University of the Philippines, from the School of Journalism. His name's Mikael Franz Flores. Hi, Mikael. I'll go straight to the topic, dire-diretso na tayo, para we can have more time. You wrote a paper which I found very interesting that has been going around the internet. And this paper is about specifically party lists.
Party list.
The party list groups, itong mga congressman na nanalo in the last election, correct? Or last two elections na ito, yung survey mo, yung report mo?
We only cover the present Congress.
The present Congress.
Yeah.
So mga party lists, you're talking, what, 50, 60 of them, ano?
Around 50, 57 or 56. Or
56, 57,
Yeah.
sige. Ladies and gentlemen, it's interesting because the report, his study that came out with, other than the survey, does not necessarily promote a specific theory other than what exactly are the party list congressmen doing? Di ba dapat yan, they represent a specific group, a niche group of a constituency. Kumbaga, pinaglolokohan nga, di ba, yung tricycle driver promoted by Arroyo, or ikaw ay LP gas, di ba, you're promoting all the people who use gas. Alam mo, we don't know anymore. Meron yung fisherman groups, meron yung kung anong labor groups, meron lahat ng naiisip sa ilalim ng buwan nagagawa ng party list. Dapat yan to represent these sections that are not represented in specific districts. But what did they do when they became congressmen in, yun na nga, anong ginawang legislatura? Michael, anong findings mo? Ano nangyari sa study mo?
We basically did an investigative study, an in-depth study of the party list representatives in the 15th Congress, the present Congress. We had 4 salient findings. First, party list representatives are no longer representative of their sector.
Wala na.
A majority of them are businessmen or lawyers. So it seems that they're no different anymore from the district,
Traditional.
from the district representatives.
Okay.
And then the second
But you know, there's an argument there. As we go along, allow me to argue.
Okay.
Ang argument dyan ni all knowledgeable, let's call him Mr. God Brillantes, di ba, of COMELEC. Sabi niya, you don't need to be part of that. Kailangan ba tricycle driver ka? Sabi nga ng mga ibang congressman, kailangan ba fisherman ako? Eh kung hindi nag-aral yung nangingisda, gusto mo po sa kongreso, yan di kinain lang yan sa Congress.
Okay.
In other words, does the representative have to actually come from that segment?
Okay.
What is the answer How do you query that?
We have a 2001 Supreme Court decision that's ang Bagong Bayani OFW versus COMELEC that was penned by former Chief Justice Artemio Panganiban. And it's very clear in his decision, the representatives, the nominees of the party list should not be mere advocates or should not just be mere members of the party list or the sectors. They should belong to the sectors themselves.
So you answered the question. Kailangan kasama sila. Isa sila nun.
Yeah.
Kaya kung nangingisda, dapat nangingisda din siya.
That's right.
Kung tricycle driver siya, tricycle driver din siya.
Because that's the very essence of the party list system. It's a social justice tool. Social justice
Yes.
tool, according to Chief Justice Panganiban. The party list system does not, or wants, the party list system wants the marginalized sectors to become veritable lawmakers themselves.
Sila mismo.
Sila mismo.
Oh, interesting. So, kung ano ka, anti-communist, talagang dapat straight ka. Extreme right ka, hindi ka extreme left. Okay, let's continue. What was your second finding out of
The second
four?
finding that we had, we looked into the bills that they filed, that they introduced into Congress. A number of party lists have been very consistent. They filed bills, they're very productive, and it's consistent with the needs and the issues of the sector. However, a number of party list representatives did not file a single bill at all.
Niwala, ni isa.
Niwala, yeah. At the time that we were doing, I think around one or two of them did not
Yes.
file any bill in Congress. And then a number of representatives filed bills that are not related to the sector. So they're filing bills that are totally different from the needs of the sector that they're supposed to represent.
Do you count filing bills when they piggyback on someone else's bill and co-author?
No, we only
You were
counted.
very specific,
Yeah,
the
we only
actual.
counted the bills that they filed. We did not count their co-authored bills or the bills that they sponsored, because sponsoring a bill is just merely affixing your signature in the bill.
Correct.
So it's different from crafting a proposed House measure yourself. So
Interesting.
that's our
And
second.
out of this, that one or two did not even file a bill,
Yeah.
and many nakisakay lang, co-sponsor or co-author, and also many of them no relationship to the sector they're supposed to represent.
That's right.
Would you have specific percentages out of the three, more or less?
I think more than half of the legislators themselves have filed less than the average bills that of the party list. So less than, I think the average that we counted was 12 bills, and it's way below the average. So I think it's alarming.
It's alarming,
Yeah.
yes. It's no laughing matter, I'm sorry, but yes, I'm finding it, yeah, okay, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. The third finding that we had is we looked into their expenditures in their pork barrel, the PDAF,
PDAF.
the Priority Development Assistance Fund.
Yes.
We wanted, or we probed and we investigated where did their funds go. So the logical thing to do is to give the funds to the sector that they're supposed to represent.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah. However, we discovered that a number of party list representatives concentrated their bills into a particular area, into a particular province, into a particular
Like Ako
city.
Bicol, which is a regional representation.
Yeah, which is a regional party. But there are party lists whose nominees are part of big political families, of established political dynasties, and you would see that the party list, the expenditure of their party list went just to the bailiwicks of their
So ginamit lang ang Kongreso. It's not true that they represent a niche group or an underrepresented group, is what you're saying, based on your findings.
I think on paper they represent a particular sector, but their legislative work says otherwise.
Plus the money that they picked out from
Yeah.
the PDAF, that's 70 million, that's 210.
That's 70 million a year,
So
and
210 after 3 years.
that's right.
So pumunta lang sa mga political allies nila or magbabarkada.
Yeah, or to their bailiwicks. Kasi,
Bailiwicks,
yeah, we observed a certain trend right after the 2009 decision by Associate Justice Carpio, the Carpio formula, because he basically declared the 2% threshold, the minimum percentage you need to get a seat.
Yes.
He declared the threshold as unconstitutional. So you only need around 150,000 votes for you to get a seat in Congress.
Which is what happened in the 2 elections ago, right?
Yeah, and then what some party lists did is to focus their work or their membership into one particular region, because it's enough. you only need a province. Like, for example, in the case of Mike Arroyo of Ang Galing Pinoy, we discovered that majority of the votes that Ang Galing Pinoy
Pampanga.
got was from Pampanga. So,
Ako Bicol, di ganun din. Bicolano
yeah,
rin.
ako, Bicol, I think got around 500,000 votes from the Bicol region.
Yes, naka 2 seats sila eh.
Yeah, three, I
3
think.
seats,
Three.
yes, that's right.
And I think 500,000 is more than enough for you to land more than one
Yeah.
one seat. Yeah, in Congress.
So, nagiging regional na rin.
Yeah, regional or district, parang they're no longer any different from the district representatives themselves. Yeah, and then
The fourth finding.
the fourth finding is, we did establish that the party list system is a flawed, or there are certain flaws to the system. So there is a need to reform. There is a need to reform the system, and I think the best way is to come up with a new law, come up with a new party list system, or to introduce amendments. But it turns out the party list representatives themselves are the most aloof to introducing reforms, because they benefited from the flaws or from the problems or from the issues of the party list representatives themselves. I think it's similar to the political dynasty issue. They would not legislate themselves out of power. So I think that's what's happening right now with the party list system. So basically, that's the four.
When you released this report, umikot tong report nito. I found it by accident, but you were able to put this out in the net.
Yeah,
You made it public. This is public information. Your study.
Yeah, I think someone who's doing an online research, an online
Right.
study, did an infographic based on our thesis.
All
So
right.
I think that's the main reason why our thesis circulated around the web. Yeah, but
GMA used it.
it's a different
channel.
Yeah, the one that GMA published is a different one from the one that circulated around the web. Yeah.
All right. But what prompted you to generate all this information? Let's go to who you are. You are a journalism student in UP. What prompted you to do this study? Baka may galit ka na may interest ka dito kasi gusto mong tumakbo ng party list, tatay mo or something.
Yeah, I have no interest at all with the party list. I have no intention.
What prompted you to do this topic?
My partner and I, Mark Jason Kayabyap, both wanted to pursue an investigative study, an in-depth study for our
Yes.
undergraduate thesis. And then we looked into the party list system. We realized that a lot of studies have already been done, but there seems to be a shortage of a profile or a comprehensive study of the present Congress. Much has been done about the past, but
Yeah, I've read a lot, pero puro mga 5-year-old, 10-year-old issues.
yeah, so I think we realized that the issue needs updating. And that's why we decided to pursue this study.
The information that came across after you did that investigative work, did it find you surprised, stunned, based on what are your emotions nyo when you found out ganito pala lumabas? Nagulat kayo?
Yeah, initially we anticipated or we expected that there would be problems, that there would really be flaws into the spirit of the system and what's actually happening. But we were actually shocked when as we immerse ourselves into the study, as we go into the thesis, we realized it's a very big problem that must really need to be addressed already.
And it's getting worse.
It's getting worse.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Now we've got people who are sitting there who will make sure that we, the people, cannot do anything about it because they're in power as far as legislation is concerned.
Yeah.
And in this election, mas lalala pa. How many do we have running now? 130 plus party lists?
We have 123. That's lower than what we had in 2010. That we had 187
80, yes.
in 2010. Partly thanks to the Commission on Elections, because they instigated an automatic review of the existing ones and the new ones. It's the first time, I think, that the COMELEC did such kind of review.
But many got out of it, got away with it,
Yeah.
using a TRO with the Supreme Court, which is still ongoing, mind you,
Yeah, it's still.
until election day. Pag ma-disqualify sila, people vote them, it still don't matter. Out pa rin yun.
Their votes would no longer be counted.
Did you pass your study to other groups or any other concerned groups, be it for the president itself, the judicial, give it to the judiciary, the Supreme Court if need be, the independent constitutional body, para mabasa nila yung mga findings. In fact, even the academia in UP, didn't they find it interesting to find out what you guys came up with?
Yeah, a number of professors was interested with our study, and then
I'm sure you got an A in this report.
yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah. Well,
And-
it actually won best thesis in 2012.
Oh, it won best. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And the professors didn't do anything about it in UP. They just let it go rather than pass it around to make sure more people read it, because this is nation building. These findings really poo-poos and poops on the party list system. And many are out there opening their mouths in media saying, "Hindi, kailangan ng party list system para tama representation." Yung pala, naloloko lang ng taong bayan. Yan ang findings mo eh.
Well, we are doing our best efforts to have our work published. A part of it was already published by GMA News Online, and then there's this guy, I forgot his name, who made an infographic out of our thesis.
That's terrific.
Yeah, and then we're exerting some effort into having the other parts of our thesis published.
And this part of this thesis, it's still ongoing. You're still updating it, I understand. That's what you told me before we started.
Yeah, it needs updating because the scope of the study was just until March of 2012, so a year has passed already, so we need to look into what happened after we...
Assuming something
submitted our
even happened.
Yeah,
Assuming something even happened.
assuming if something
Yeah.
happened.
So the party list system, based on your findings, is this is it, and wala, kalokohan lang to, is what you're saying. Kalokohan ng party list system. Regardless, well, it does not follow the letter of the law to begin with. You said number one, it is not the right representation of the party list. It's basically mga may advokasya and those businessmen who promoted it to get a congressional seat, correct? Parang ganun lumalabas. Two, the performance in Congress did not amount to any real legislation. This is your findings based on the majority, correct? Majority did not. Three, the expense vouchers or expenditure reports went to their bailiwicks and to their districts or whatever, rather than to the representatives or the niche group that underrepresented for. Correct me if I'm wrong.
But I think a number of them, I'm not saying all of them are no longer true to the
Meron ba
spirit.
mausay na party list?
Meron naman.
Give me an example.
Okay, the Makabayan coalition, they're quite productive when
Alright.
when it comes to their legislative work. And then there really is their bills really represent the sectors that they are.
So there are performers.
There are performers. Akbayan is another, and then we have Agham. Agham party list, I think, is the most productive. And what's his name?
UPN, huh?
Yeah, I think. Their representative, Angelo Palmones, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the most productive legislators in the country, or in Congress right now.
Based on your report, after you've gone through the whole thing, in the end, do you recommend, or what would you recommend we do now? Tanggalin ang party list, continue it, purge it, what?
The most ideal is to come up with a new law, introduce reforms, come up with a new formula, come up with a new computation. But I think there's also a need to educate the voters. For the longest time, the awareness of the public about the party list system has been very low. In fact, during the first party list election, less than 30%, I think, were aware
Yes,
of the system.
I agree with you. Out of the 40, 50 million voters, talagang kukunti pa rin lumalabas sa party list.
Yeah.
Mikael, if any of our viewers wanted to get in touch with you, what would be would you be willing to give your cell number just in case other interested parties would like to call on you, or a web address or an email address?
I can give my email address.
Yes, please.
My email address is mikhaflores@gmail.com.
Mikha, so that's M-I...
KHA.
K-H-A.
Yeah.
Mikha, M-I-K-H-A. Flores.
Flores.
One word, Mikha Flores
Flores.
at gmail.com.
That's right.
I'd like to give you 30 seconds to a minute. What would be your exit message to our viewers on the study that you have found? What would be your message, last message?
I think there is a need for the viewers to educate themselves about the party list system, especially those at the margins of our society, because this is a social justice tool. This this is the very essence of the party list system. We want Congress to be opened up to groups, constituencies, and sectors with national representation who would otherwise not get elected into Congress by means of district representation. We need to be aware of this because this tool, or this social justice tool, would encourage those people at the margins or marginalized and underrepresented sectors. They would become veritable lawmakers themselves.
Thank you very much, Mikael, and thank you very much for the information. I would like to write more about it. I have your document, I have your study,
Yeah.
and I'll get back to you. Maraming salamat, Mikael.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end this portion with just that thought. What do we do with the party lists? I leave that to you after hearing that report. Just before we end this segment, I too am running for Congress in Muntinlupa. I can't say vote for me because you're not supposed to until next week. But yes, I'm running. Matakbo po ako sa Muntinlupa. Isa lang ang legislative agenda ko po. Sa Giptao, spillway na. Ibig sabihin, sasagutin ko ang taon-taon na problema nangyayari sa Muntinlupa. Kaisa-isa lang naman talagang napakalaking problema dyan. Ang tawag po dyan yung Laguna de Bay. Pag nagbaha at umulan na at nagdagsa na yung mga tubig galing sa north, no? Pagbaba niya sa norte, pababa ng tubig, wala, kawawa po, napipinsala po ang taong bayan sa Muntinlupa. Tumatakbo po ako at yan lang, kaisa-isa lang, pinaka-importante, aasikasuhin ko. We'll be right back. Stay with us.